Welcome back to the British Latino Network. This is our third episode of the podcast series, and today we have a special guest, Helen Najera. Helen Najera is a mentor on the mentoring program here at the British Latino Network. She's also my sister, actually, so there is going to be some familiarity in this interview that maybe might shine through. Anyway, I thought that would be good to get Helen on this episode just because of her background, just because of what she's doing, and I think it'd be quite insightful for young Latinos, young Latinas in the UK to listen to her story and to listen to what she's doing, and hopefully it will inspire you all. So yes, Helen, how are you today? How are you doing? And how are you?
Hi, Diego. Thank you for having me on British Latino Network. I think it's quite important to talk about these topics when it comes to pursuing a career in science as both a woman and a Latina.
Mm-hmm.
I think these topics are quite important and they're not very talked about, and it's nice to be able to discuss this with you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, it's good to have you here. It's good to have you visiting also for the weekend.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good opportunity to just talk to you and really get this interview going. Just to start off, for those who don't know you, just a bit of background into where you're originally from.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of...
I was born here in London,
Mm-hmm.
in England. Both my parents are from Ecuador.
Yeah.
More specifically, Santo Domingo.
Yeah. Which is a coastal city, isn't it?
A coastal city of Ecuador. And I was raised in mostly, I would say, a Latino environment.
Mm-hmm.
At home,
Mm-hmm.
we spoke Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And we made sure that our traditions and our culture was predominant.
Preserved.
Yeah, it was quite strong in our family.
Yeah.
Of course we spoke English outside in school and in other areas. So I'm 23.
Mm-hmm.
I'm studying veterinary medicine, currently in my 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
My course is 5 years and a half, so I'm almost...
You're nearly there.
I'm almost at the finish mark, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Good. I guess maybe what would be good to sort of touch on is so how did you find the whole transition, through school, secondary school, college, or sixth form in your case, and then university? What challenges did you maybe encounter, or what things stick in your mind that maybe you can sort of draw back on and say this was sort of a challenging period, particularly because of a specific reason? Do you feel that maybe the fact that you were raised by obviously not necessarily fully English speaking parents, did you feel like that had an impact on your education prospects, or just in general in that period of your life?
Yeah, I definitely think having parents which are first immigrants,
Mm-hmm.
and secondly do not speak the language and don't necessarily know British culture, it raises you to be different than people who have that.
Mm-hmm.
So for me personally, when I started, I guess, to notice differences, probably around my A-levels.
Right.
Because before that, everything was pretty easygoing. Like education wasn't... I didn't necessarily take it as serious as I should have,
Mm-hmm.
which is a downfall for me and something I regret.
Mm-hmm.
I think around year 12 or year 13, which is our A-levels, it gets harder, of course, because you can't necessarily go with certain difficulties, like if you have certain problems with chemistry or biology, all of this, you can't necessarily go and ask your parents to help you, right?
Yeah.
Because they're not educated in that field as well.
Mm-hmm.
And also for us as children of immigrants, their work schedule, it's quite hectic. I think most Latinos who have parents that are hard workers, which most Latinos here in England are, their parents usually have 2 or 3 jobs, right? And so, for example, I remember during my A-levels, my parents would come home from work like around 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? And I would have to stay home with the dogs from like 7 till that time.
Taking care of them.
Sort of being alone and also trying to study as much as you can. And then to be able to make time to actually have some quality time with my parents, we will stay up till 2:30 in the morning, and then wake up again, and then wake up tomorrow or the following day at 7.
Yeah.
And I think those things make a difference because other people go to sleep at 9.
Yeah.
9:30 and then wake up at 7, so they already have an advantage.
Yeah.
You know, and
Do you
just
have like a specific already set schedule where it's like everything sort of flows?
exactly.
Whereas when you're like in a household where maybe it's not as, things are sort of all up in the air, then maybe, it's quite divided. You don't have a specific time for studying, you don't have a specific time for spending with family.
Exactly.
And so it just is all sort of mixed up. So yeah, I guess that's what you're sort of
that's what I'm
hinting
trying
at,
to say. That you don't necessarily have a certain time to do stuff. You kind of just do them when you have the time to do it.
Right.
And you get on with it and try to do your best and see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. And so did you feel like that was obviously A-levels are hard. You took quite hard A-levels anyway because you wanted to get into veterinary medicine. But you obviously felt like this sort of situation was a challenge, and it sort of made it even more difficult.
Definitely.
What was really difficult in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. It was a challenge. Also, our household is very Christian.
Yeah.
So what that meant was spending Saturday and Sunday in church, mostly the whole day.
Yeah.
Or at least, I think maybe 70% of the day in church.
Yeah.
And that was another difficult part because it's not just, you don't have necessarily time during the week to study, but then during the weekend you're also, you also have to spend time doing other stuff. So I do think that was quite challenging, and as we know, Christianity and being Catholic is part of Latino culture.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just your religion, it's also your culture.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a part in stuff as well.
Okay. And so just going back to this, your aim of becoming a veterinary medic, how did this sort of start? Because in our family, we don't really have anyone who's a veterinary medic.
No.
We don't have, particularly the fact that we live here and most of our sort of main family live back home.
Yeah.
We're sort of disconnected, where our immediate family may just be cousins, a few cousins,
Exactly.
a few uncles and aunties, which are sort of all in the same boat. But I do remember from a very young age, this was something that was you were always sort of mentioning, I want to become a veterinary medic, I want to study this and that.
Yeah.
How did this start?
So I think, so I don't necessarily remember the specific day where it came to me and I'm like, yes, that's what I want to be.
Yeah.
But I do remember gradual steps to it. You know, I remember that I would hate playing with dolls, like Barbies.
Yeah.
I would never play with Barbies.
Yeah.
Or those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I do remember one day I was in Tesco in Brixton with my dad, and there was this little toy set of like a kennel box with a little stuffed dog and the stethoscope and the thermometer.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, oh, this is interesting. Instead of looking at the Barbies and those kind of stuff, I looked at that, and then my dad bought me that, and I brought it home.
Yeah.
And I think gradual things like that sort of develop you into becoming the person you are.
Yeah.
I would also watch loads of movies of dogs.
Like sad movies.
Sad movies of dogs, documentaries. David Attenborough, my inspiration. He's my everything.
Yeah.
Just gradual stuff like that. Loving nature. We also had dogs.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like something. It was something visible, something I could actually touch.
Yeah.
We would always have dogs. We had hamsters. We would have birds, rabbits. You know,
yeah.
so our parents also allowed us to experience that.
Yeah.
So that was something really great.
Yeah. Okay. And perhaps we'll probably have some listeners which are maybe in secondary school, college, sixth form, or even just about to apply for university, because we've just, we're in about December now.
Yeah.
People may be sending off their applications. What would be maybe your advice in terms of how do you even go about thinking about what you really want to do at university? you know, for you, obviously there was certain factors in your life which developed this interest that you had.
Yeah.
But for someone who maybe is a bit unsure about what they want to study, and sometimes it can just be because there's not enough information available, we don't have any examples to follow of what is this career really like. What advice would you give them?
I would say think about what you really enjoy doing. Whatever that may be, just sit down with a notebook and really like think, you know, take like a few hours off the day and try and think about what you enjoy doing and apply that in a way that you could actually make money. How can that be a career? Whether it's that you enjoy doing hair, then what can lead to you having a profession in that? If you enjoy like biology, okay, what branches of biology do I like most?
Yeah.
You know, do I like genetics? Do I like cell biology? All of these kind of things. And then try and go more specific. And we have the internet, you know.
Yeah.
So definitely use that. Go to different universities. They have their own webpage.
Yeah.
And just look at the courses, read the descriptions.
Yeah.
Go on YouTube. They also have videos. Just try and see what like captivates you.
Yeah.
What speaks to you, and have a few options. Like I had a few options as well. If veterinary medicine didn't work out, I had a few options as well. I think it's important not to set yourself, okay, I just want to be this and this. Like, I think it's important also to be like, okay, maybe plan A didn't work. What's plan B?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And be fine with those options. You know that whether your plan A didn't work, plan B is also good. You know, not put that as secondary.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess we've sort of learned about you a bit. Maybe just before we go into the main bit of this episode, what would you maybe say is what would you say maybe for you has been quite a challenge in terms of actually now studying the course that you're on? Obviously you've had the interest, and some people who may be going into university, maybe going into a new job, maybe they've had this sort of interest beforehand where, you know, they've got an idea in their head of how nice it may be, but once you actually go into it, maybe do the expectations meet of what you had? So yeah, in your case, you know, you've had this passion, you've had this interest. Do you feel like it's been worth it so far?
Well, you know, it's quite difficult to say. Like, of course, for myself, I know that this is what I want, and I know that this process of 5.5 years of studying is only a moment of my lifetime, and then after that, I can actually do, you know, what I want to do, like what I want to work in. So for what has been challenging for me throughout these 4 years has been the amount of studying, the amount of work. So we have a lot of stuff to learn, because we don't only learn about one species, you know, we learn about different species and in depth. And for example, for pharmacology, many animals react differently to stuff. And especially this the second semester of third year and the first semester of fourth year has been incredibly difficult with the amount of studies we have. So I think the workload is difficult. Clinical rotations can also be difficult, because sometimes they're not what you expect, you know, because of course when I've gone to veterinary clinics here to do like volunteer work, they're completely different to where I study back home, or where I study. I do small animal clinical practice in an emergency clinic. So that's much more hectic than doing it in a private clinic somewhere in Clapham. You know, it's a completely different scene. And with veterinary medicine, of course, the doctors who are already working there, they also use you to do like the dirty work, clean the vomit, clean the blood, you know, and all of this. So I think it's just being able to understand that this is for a moment, and then you're able to move on. And for example, for myself, I want to work with small animals. I want to have my own clinic eventually. And so that's one of my goals, Yeah, and I work on, and I plan on working on that.
Okay, good. All right then. So we're gonna get into the meat of the subject of the episode for today. Just like I said, this is episode 3 of our podcast series. You can find us on Spotify by searching British Latino Network, on Apple Podcasts also by searching British Latino Network. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is BLN Media. And yeah, you don't want to miss the episodes we've got coming up. We've got some good content. But yes, let's get into the meat of the subject for this episode. So we're going to talk about the challenges of pursuing a career in science as a young Latina. Essentially, the idea behind this topic or this subject is there's going to be some challenges that you faced where yourself as a young Latino, you know, you've come across them in your pursuit into veterinary medicine, in science, which perhaps other people who may be non-Latino may have gone through also. But the fact that you are a Latina and the fact that our audience are Latinos and Latinas, we also want to hear your point, and we want to understand something that you may be going through, something that other people may be going through also, that through listening to this they can identify themselves with. Also, myself, as someone who's been in sciences as well, I also have my own perspective, but I just want to hear your input. What have been the challenges that you've seen in science for you, particularly going in as a Latina?
I think there are many challenges, both because of our culture and then also externally from other people.
Right.
You know, I think one of for me it's quite difficult because I study in a Eastern European country. Right. So they don't really see what they would call exotic, or they don't see different colored people. Right. So something difficult for me during the first year. Now it doesn't bother me, and for me it's like nothing anymore.
Yeah.
But during the first year, like I've told you because we've spoken about this, I knew I was brown.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or of not the light color.
Yeah.
But I didn't, I knew it because I would see myself in the mirror, right? And you acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But I didn't no way I feel in my heart.
Yeah.
In my mind, I feel like my mind didn't process it.
Yeah, it wasn't something that you had to sort of be totally conscious
aware.
about.
Yeah, it wasn't something you have to be aware. It's not like you have a
oh yeah, I'm brown. And that's
or you have a nose. Okay, it's just something you have and that's it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a complete shock when I went to Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And everyone is white.
Yeah. And
very tall and green or blue eyes and blonde.
Yeah.
And very Eastern European looking.
Yeah.
And so also the teachers. Also, it's important to know that this was ex-Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So that kind of mentality, especially with the older generation, which are the professors, unfortunately, sticks. And so for me during the first year, it was quite difficult to realize that many teachers had favorites.
Right.
But their favoritism was, I would say, partially based on the fact that I wasn't necessarily white.
Right.
Yeah. So I could see that they would differentiate me. There's 3 people, including myself, who are slightly coloured.
Tanned
brown, yeah. And so it was very noticeable how they would treat us to how they would treat the other white people. So that was a challenge for me, knowing that, because that was probably during the first semester where I realized, okay, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
When I went for the second semester, I was like, okay, I now know that when I walk into a class and I have a new teacher, first of all, they're not going to see. What they're going to see, first of all, is my colour.
Yeah.
And then from then on, they're going to judge me.
Yeah.
So what I felt, and when I talked to these other girls, they also felt this. What we felt was that when we walked into a class, the teacher would automatically assume we were not as smart
Right.
as our fellow colleagues because we were like coloured.
Yeah.
So I think that was quite difficult to see, and you would have to work harder.
Yeah.
You simply have to work harder. You have to work more. You have to get better grades. And I had a Lithuanian teacher. I would get the same answers as another white student, but she would mark me down for them. Right?
Yeah.
So that's clear racism for me, because if I write the same thing as this person, then I should get the same mark.
Yeah.
So it's knowing that you're going to face these challenges and knowing that you you have to go, you have to pass them. And that's it. And I can't do anything about my color, and I don't want to do anything about my color. I like the way I look. I like who I am.
Yeah.
And like now in this society, we shouldn't have to be like thinking about that, worrying about that. Like, why? But unfortunately, I would say that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Because they judge you immediately based on what you look like.
Yeah. Okay. And do you think like that? Of course, that may change in terms of you being exposed to that sort of environment, depending on where you're living, of course. But do you think that there is this sort of may go further in terms of it may not just be a university issue, it could be also an issue when you actually go into the workplace?
Oh, yeah.
Because I've heard of people who've who've gone to a workplace, into a scientific workplace, or just a workplace in general, and sometimes, though it may not be blatant, because that's the thing now, is things aren't, racism isn't necessarily blatant.
I mean, they're not going to walk up to you and be like, oh, you're brown, so I'm not going to give you the job. No.
It's sort of a bit, it's very quite hidden,
it's discreet.
Quite concealed, discreet.
Yeah.
So, anyway, what I'm trying to say is, do you feel like this can also be an issue that is going into a workplace, and hopefully it won't affect your career progression in the future?
I think we would have to be naive to think this won't be an issue.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that this will be an issue.
Yeah.
I know it will be an issue.
Yeah.
But that just means, again, I'm going to have to work harder.
Yeah.
So if my fellow white colleagues do something, get a good grade, then I'm simply going to have to get better, because we don't start at the same point. I automatically start with -10, let's say, because of that.
Yeah.
So obviously it would be great if that wouldn't be a problem, and we do live in London, and there is quite a lot of diversity, and especially within what I've seen here in the clinics, because I've gone to quite a few clinics here in London. There are quite a lot of diverse vets, a lot from Greece, from Spain, from Italy, from Portugal. So
there's more variety.
Yeah. So even though it will be a problem, I'm hoping that I won't have to face them.
Yeah.
But I'm also prepared if I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what advice would you give to other fellow British Latinas who may encounter this, may find themselves in the same situation where, like I said, it may be discreet, it may not be blatant, that they're sort of being targeted, or sort of, there's some sort of, challenge being imposed on them because of their, origin or background. What has gotten you through the challenges you've gone through, particularly with this, and what would you encourage other people to do to get past this? How to approach the situation, essentially?
You see, this was quite difficult for me, because when you're faced with a situation like that, it's very easy to act out, in whatever way that may be, whether it's violent or, verbal or whatever. And I think something that always sort of maintained me in, like, being the person I am is reminding myself that if I behave in the way they think I'll behave, then they'll be winning.
Yeah.
If I act out, and if I necessarily like speak in a way which I shouldn't speak, then I would just be showing them exactly what they want to see.
Yeah.
I'll be the stereotype they want.
Yeah.
They want to see. So I think it's important to remind yourself that even though, yes, you know, it might feel good to act out or do whatever you want to do, but you have to think bigger.
Yeah.
You know, you can't like necessarily because someone is racist to you, like just beat them up.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, of
like,
course not.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to think about it like, okay, how will this affect me?
Yeah.
No.
Is it even worth?
That's the
Yeah.
thing. Is it worth it? And the thing is, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
You just simply have to move on and just carry on doing what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think, in my opinion, what has, I mean, being honest, I mean, it's quite possible that I have faced stuff like this, but I'm not going to say it's been as blatant as yours.
Yeah.
But in general, what's got me through situations which have been challenging, just in science or just in trying to pursue a career in science anyway, or in any aspect of my life, is just understanding the bigger picture of what I'm trying to do.
Exactly.
And understanding the end goal, because, you know, like there's so many challenges that can come up, you know, financial hardship, health, family issues, so much issues, and sometimes it can be hard to remain focused, but the best thing to do is literally take it day by day. But when I mean day by day, doesn't mean starting with new goals afresh every day.
No.
But start taking it day by day and gradually working towards your end goal.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you'll see that throughout, as the days go by, as the months go by, you'll get closer to your goal. And it's true, you know, that we do have a massive disadvantage in many areas. An area that I can see particularly is just information, you know, widening access for young British Latinos, British Latinas in the UK. And I'm sure this isn't an issue just to the Latino community, it's an issue with other ethnic minorities as well, where the information isn't there.
Yeah.
You don't know how to access it. What course can you do for you to then, what university offers the course? How do you even go about picking the course?
Yeah.
Because you sort of make your way through the education system and then you find yourself on a course at university. 3 years after, you find yourself in an office working in something you didn't even know this is what it was going to lead to.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that is quite a challenge, and it's a shame because, you know, there's so much potential which is lost, so much potential which is misguided, which isn't helped. And I think that information, the lack of information, the lack of having a mentor, the lack of having an example, a role model to follow is a massive issue in our community.
Yeah.
And of course it's quite, you know, normal for that to happen in our community, in the sense that most of us are second, if third generation Latinos in the UK. And so the first and second generation, typically what happens is that they'll be working in, you know, in low income jobs, which are typically classed as low skilled. Their lifestyle is much more hectic, and obviously that has trickle down effects on their children, where their children can't see them enough, where if the children need extra support with a subject, they can't ask their parents because their parents don't know, and if they need a tutor, they haven't got enough money. It's too expensive. And so there's so many factors which affect, you know, someone really making it. And I think it's so important for us, you know, as young Latinos and Latinas in the UK who are making their way, to really pave the way and also help those who are coming behind us as well.
Yeah.
Through mentoring, through sharing tips, through whatever it is, but helping people out.
Helping the community.
Yeah, because helping makes a massive difference, and we can't take for little what we possess, because what we possess, even if we consider it as small, it's something massive for someone else. So yeah, I mean, do you have any other challenges that you feel like you've experienced, or that you think like is a particular issue in science?
So just something to something I personally like to remind myself when I'm going through a challenge also is education wise, you know.
Yeah.
I remind myself that my parents didn't come from their home country to work here so hard for me not to achieve my goals. You know, for me not to be that doctor, for me not to have this education, like I remind myself that I have to work harder.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. That's also important for young Latinos to remind yourself that your parents didn't come from, whether it's Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, for you to
not make
it, you know, for you to not make the most out of the opportunity you're given. Look for resources, you know, like invest your time instead of being out like having fun and like drinking or whatever it can be. Invest your time by searching for what you can study, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's important because you're not only representing yourself, you're representing your family, you're representing your culture and your country.
Yeah.
And I think that's extremely important.
Yeah.
To remind yourself, yeah.
Definitely. I think it's really important to make the most out of the opportunities you have. You know, there's already quite an imbalance of opportunities anyway, an imbalance of information, and so whatever little opportunities you do have, then it's the best, you know, you best make the most out of it.
Yeah. I think it's important to also acknowledge the sacrifice your parents make. You know, the sacrifice they made, which was to come to this country, leaving their whole family, leaving everything behind, for you to have a better education, for you to live a better life.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to put all of that into what you're doing. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So, right, I think we've discussed the meat of this episode.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the last portion of this episode. Again, I just want to remind you that if you want to follow us on our YouTube channel, you can do on BLN Media. Subscribe, follow us on our Instagram, British Latino Network. Get the word out to other people that they can subscribe to our podcast on British Latino Network, on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So we're going to enter the last portion of our episode today. And this is going to be a bit different to what we've done before. It's going to be quite specific. We have quite a lot of university people and college people who follow our channel, some interested in law, some interested in psychology. We have someone who was actually interested in veterinary medicine. So we have some variety, some, you know, quite a lot of numbers who are interested and who listen to our episodes. Sorry. So what I want to ask you is, you know, you obviously you've spent 4 years and a half at university, plus a year doing another course at university also, so nearly 5 years and a half. You would have spent nearly 6 years and a half once you finish your course. For someone who may be thinking about a career in science, what options do you think are available, you know, and just sort of name drop them and sort of just name drop them so people can actually have some idea, you know, what courses actually are available, what careers are available if you want something in science. Name drop them, and then maybe towards the end you can sort of give a brief summary as to why you think these sort of careers are quite good.
So of course you have veterinary medicine, human medicine, nanotechnology, which is also quite interesting. You have molecular biology, you have biochemistry, biomedicine, chemistry, biology, physics, you know, all of the other sciences.
Pharmacy as well.
Pharmacy, yes, pharmaceutical sciences. What other options? So public health, odontology, nutrition.
Yeah, that's quite a big one nowadays.
That's a big one, medicine or physics. There's a range of different things. And these are the main ones, but then you also have like other ones which aren't very common but are also important and
sort of upcoming.
It's a good career. So I think it's important if you're not sure what to study, but you want something in the science realm, then try and see whether it's biology, chemistry, physics or maths. You know, try and see which one of those like pique your interest more. If it's biology, okay, then what type of biology do I want? Like what am I actually interested in? And try and do that with all four. and then from that on, just sort of subdivide into categories.
Yeah.
You know, which one would be best for me.
So you narrow it down, basically.
Narrow it down until you reach one which you're comfortable with, which you're like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to study.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so finally, what would you say then is maybe the benefit of these careers, you know, of pursuing a career in science?
One of the benefits. A stable job. Stable job. You know, I don't know necessarily about the benefits, because for me it's been the only thing I've ever been interested in.
Yeah.
So I don't really like Google like what are the benefits of studying science.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's more of like that's the only thing I was interested in from when I was a child. So that's the only thing I actually did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right then. So I just want to say thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, seeing you again also, and I'm sure that the listeners will have enjoyed and would have found the information you've given insightful, useful, and I think it's always important to remember, like you said, you know, the sacrifices our parents or whoever it is that brought us here, whatever the journey was, to remember the sacrifice and remember the hard work that was put in. There was a lot put in for you to sort of slack and not fulfill your potential, and I think it's so important. You know, there's so many people that often go about with unrealized potential where they just miscarried it and it never really becomes nothing. Becomes anything, sorry. And so I just want to encourage everyone who's listening, definitely, you know, spend time thinking about what your plans are, what you're good at, and just working it day by day, and bit by bit you'll start to see a massive difference in the things you're doing, the things you're achieving. But it's important to start. That's the most important thing. So yes, this brings a conclusion to our episode. Thank you, Helen, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you here, and it's been a pleasure to host this episode. It's Diego Nájera. I'm the founder of the British Latino Network, and we'll be sharing our new episodes, also our upcoming episode, where we'll be speaking to Claudia Adler, which is a founder at Raíces organization, which is a very interesting charity who's working for equity in the workplace for young women across the world. That will be our upcoming episode, and you can follow it on here on our podcast platform. Thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure having you all here. Thank you. Bye-bye.